Because sometimes we get to this point where we just break a barrier, and then that barrier is crushed forever. Once we break through that limitation, we can't go back. We're made to be stronger than that. Those lessons and accomplishments, milestones, they become a part of our journey. And it doesn't even matter how scared or lost that we're broken even, that we start out. Like I believed that I was.
Hey everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. I'm your host, Maria de Lorenzis Reyes. Welcome to this special podcast series starting today, Real Women, 7 Minutes of Transformation. These presentations were recorded at the Revive and Thrive Summit that we had last year. Each episode that you're about to hear is a part of a larger collaboration. It's a collective of women who came together not just to share their story, but to create something meaningful together. These conversations are the foundation of an upcoming collaborative book project that we're launching later this year. Every woman featured in this series is a contributing author to that book. These episodes exist to share the moments that change us and to remind you that your story matters more than you think. Let's begin.
I spent the first almost 40 years of my life feeling like I needed to be quiet. And then the last few years, learning to understand the importance of being loud. And I don't necessarily mean raising my voice, although I have a mic right now, which is really cool. But my story is a little different because I've been writing since I was about this big. As I was learning how to write my ABCs on paper and how to spell words, I was writing down my thoughts, emotions, and feelings. But it was something that I had hid from the world. I hid behind my words for a really long time because I was afraid of what everyone else would think. I couldn't be raw and vulnerable and authentic. I didn't even know what those words meant at the time. But I just couldn't do it because I was just scared of being teased. So I went through an intense fear of judgment over all of that. And I know that so many of us have some type of fear that holds us back, some kind of barrier or limitation. And after all those years of being called teacher's pet and people thinking that I was a lot younger than I am and being hearing impaired, I said, there's enough things for them to make fun of already. Why add to it? Why would they care what I had to say? What would the words of this kid even matter? But deep inside, I always believed in daring to dream a little bit differently. Far beyond what I knew, far beyond what I felt. It's there in everything that I've published. And if you read it, you could probably see that exact moment where apprehension meets determination. So many times throughout life, I was told to shh, that nobody would listen. They wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't understand. Or maybe they just wouldn't care. I was shy, but I had something to say. I had a lot to say, actually. I just didn't know how to go about it in a way that would really matter to people. And it kept nudging me over and over, like poking at me, and I would not accept it until one day I did. And this book collaboration that we did together, it was different for me because it was part of a whole. It was a strong belief that I had in the ripple effect that we could all make together. And it was launched right around the time that I was creating some guided meditations for a wellness facility that I work with. And I was creating a script that I called Release and Rise, which was about exactly that. It was taking all the lies and limitations and the beliefs that we had about ourselves and releasing them and stepping into that person that we're meant to be, who's raw and authentic and inspiring and true to themselves. And I was sitting there one day at work, and I put that together, and I was like, I'm going to record this, and I'm going to present it to the company and just see what happens. So I did. And a couple weeks later, they had the track professionally edited, and then they debuted it to the entire studio. So I went there, and I sat, and I guided everyone through the experience, and it was wonderful. I would just sit there taking part, and I went every single week while they did that. And then one day, I showed up at 8 o'clock for the 8:15 session. And they're like, Cassie, technology is failing us today. I was like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, your track's missing. Oh, okay. So instead of being able to just sit there and listen to something that I had done along with everyone else, They said, you have two options. You could either have us just do something else, or you could wing it. And you could stand up and improvise for 20 minutes. So I basically froze in fear for probably what was like 2 whole minutes. And then I realized this was a chance to practice what I preach, to step out of my comfort zone, to pour into these people who are there to hear whatever it is I have to say. It doesn't matter if it was something that I had rehearsed every single word. No, it's in it. At that moment, I was like, all right. I said, I'm going to do this. And I did. And it felt amazing. And everyone enjoyed it. They said, it feels like you were speaking directly to me. That was 6 months ago. And I can honestly say that every single week I've been there and I have never played that recorded track again. Because sometimes we get to this point where we just break a barrier and then that barrier is crushed forever. Once we break through that limitation, we can't go back. We're made to be stronger than that. Those lessons and accomplishments, milestones, they become a part of our journey. And it doesn't even matter how scared or lost that we're broken even, that we start out, like I believed that I was. Just recently, I asked my mom, have you noticed any changes in me since I started sharing my works as like in published books? And I expected that mom was going to have some sort of thought process behind it and like think about it for a minute. But she didn't even hesitate. And she just looked at me and she says, well, yeah, you used to be able to not talk to anybody and now you can't shut up. And I was like, but she said, for real though, she's like, you came out of your shell and you found a way to really connect with people. You went from not being able to have a conversation with anyone to going out in public and just talking to everyone. I was like, okay, I'll take it. So I realized that sharing has built my confidence. And has it helped me find my purpose in helping others in ways I never could have imagined? And every time I'm hesitant or I worry what others will think, because that little voice still pops up, I call her Cassie. But I remind myself, life gave you this opportunity to shine, to be true to you, and to inspire others. So stop doubting yourself. And that's my advice to all of you today as well. Stop doubting, start living, and sharing your story.
Thank you for spending time with us. Every story you've heard in this series is a part of that larger collaboration, this collective of women who came together to share their real experiences, real growth, and real transformation. Again, these conversations are the foundation of our collaborative book launching later this year. If something in today's episode resonated with you, let that be an invitation to reflect, to get curious, and to consider what part of your own story may be ready to be shared. You'll hear more about the book as we move forward and each episode launches. And you'll hear more about the women behind it as well. Until then, thank you for being a part of this journey and for honoring the power of real stories.